Okay, first I want to thank everyone for joining me this evening for today's Q&A session. This session will be recorded. It's uploaded to our growing YouTube channel, which is Career Innovations, all one word. If you type that in, you can get some past workshops and some past recordings that we actually uploaded. It usually takes us anywhere from 24 to 48 hours following the event. Sometimes it's taking longer depending on the caseload. You have options of one or two ways to ask questions, really depending on how you logged into the workshop. I really prefer that you send them in prior to the workshop, but if you did not, you can have an option of asking a question following the workshop. I can unmute your mic by you raising your hand, and you can verbally ask your question, or you can type your question below in the actual question chat box. So depending on if you logged in and you entered your audio code, would give you the option to actually ask your question. Let me go ahead and give you a quick 30-second overview of what Career Innovations does and a little bit about myself. I'm Bridget Baggett. I'm the founder of Career Innovations. Career Innovations was actually launched in 2007. We are a referral-based firm. We pride ourselves in innovative technology as well as unconventional ways to find top talent. My true passion is organizational change. I truly believe an organizational culture starts with the company's core values. Is the foundation for attracting and obtaining top talent. As you can see, some of the services that we do offer in addition to our Q&A sessions is resume writing and edits as far as market research, compensation benchmarking. We also do referral and retention workshops for employers. Today's quote is, ambition is the path to success. Persistence is the vehicle you arrive in. Don't be afraid of moving slow, but be afraid of standing still. And I thought that was a very powerful quote. That's a picture of me in one of my passions, which is I do skydive, so I really enjoy that as well. And many ask why we do the sessions is that since we work with many candidates and many of them we don't place because, you know, we work for the employer and the client that actually hires us for a position, so there's no way we can place every single resume that comes across our desk. We wanted to be able to have some type of tool or resource to offer job seekers that gives them some type of direction to find positions on their own. So this is something that we do on a weekly basis to give people insight on how to obtain employment, even if they can't find employment through us. First off, when we look at your career journey or your job search journey, you want to know your destination. Unfortunately, I've worked with many that don't have a destination. They don't know what they want to do. They're kind of applying to a little bit of everything. The first thing you want to do is, what are your career goals? What is your ultimate objectives? What are you trying to actually do and move forward with? And I start off with this as the playing field because I like to have a foundation before we move into the questions. We had several questions asked, and I'm going to go over each one in depth. So this slide is pretty much going to lay the foundation of what we're going to talk about tonight. And the first thing you need to know when you're actually looking for a career is, what is your career goals? I put this graph on here, or this pie graph that I was actually able to get from Job Search Digest, and it shows that 62% of job seekers land their jobs other ways besides the job board. And as you can see, a recruiter and a job board, which is in blue, only makes up 38% of how job seekers are finding their jobs. That leaves over 60% open. And unfortunately, many people are using 100% of their efforts in that little blue shaded area. That's all they're doing is applying online, applying on job boards, and not realizing there's 62% that's being untapped by job seekers. So you want to make sure that you're maximizing your efforts. Another thing you want to have in place is a marketing plan. Again, when I speak with job seekers, they have no type of plan in place on what they're going to pursue, when they're going to apply, how they're going to follow up. It's more of a, I'm winging it. I'm going to apply as I see jobs. They really don't have a concrete plan in place that's going to gear them and put them in a position to be hired. So that's another thing I see. And this is something that you're going to have to take a look at, and you're going to have to be honest with yourself and say, do I really have a strategic plan in place that I'm following to bring me close to my goal? And the next thing is diversification. Are you diversifying your outlets? Are you diversifying your network? Are you diversifying your resources? Again, this goes beyond the job board. What are you doing besides applying online? Many people aren't diversifying their tools. There's a lot of outlets besides LinkedIn. There's a lot of outlets besides Indeed. There are many outlets that are out there that many job seekers are not tapping into. So you definitely want to have an open mind and look at diversifying the way that you're looking for a job. And do not paint yourself in the corner and leave yourself up to chance at the mercy of if an employer calls you back based on the resume that you submitted. Next thing is timing. At the end of the day, it does boil down to the need of the employer. And I don't want to see you beat yourself up, and a lot of candidates do it. They start to second guess their expertise and their skills. Sometimes it does boil down to timing. Sometimes it's, either the right time and the right opportunity for that employer to reach out to you. So you also want to take timing into consideration when you're applying to these positions. If you've seen a job out there since January and it's now August, September, you want to take that in consideration. Are they just looking for a candidate that they may potentially hire? Because that also lets you know there may not be any urgency behind that position, or that position may not be look to be filled immediately. So again, you don't want to waste your time on positions that you may already apply to. You may not heard anything back. Sometimes it does boil down to timing. And I can actually be a witness to that as well. So when you do look at this pie graph, you will see, different places people are finding job and opportunities, and personal network takes the cake. You can see 41% of people are landing their job through personal network. They're also looking and reaching out to previous employers, school related, and some are actually going through other, which can be through a personal referral or anything of that nature. But you also want to see that personal network is trumping the job board. So you want to be able to also reach into your personal network as well. Okay, let's go ahead to the questions. We had a lot of questions today, and I actually combined the questions. So when we go through the slides, some questions or multiple questions will be answered per slide because some of them are very related. The first one is, how do you get interviews when you just moved in? What can I do to increase my chances of being called back after an interview? What motivates you to help people find jobs? Where are job fairs? I am new in the area and I'm from Pennsylvania. How do I get in touch with recruiters and the successful job applying skills? I'm trying to transition from nonprofit to corporate. What advice do you have to offer? Are there different approaches to job seeking depending if the target is corporate or non-corporate? What questions should I ask during an interview? How to jumpstart a search after 5 years of not working? How to improve my English skills or English communication skills fast? Any tips for job seekers that have been out of work for an extended period of time, extended period which is in years? And I'm a pretty private person. How can I guard my ID while conducting a successful search? I'm going to touch base on that. The first question I want to actually touch base on, which someone said, what motivates you to help people find jobs? And I thought that was pretty much a question they were asking me directly. And again, I believe in giving back. It is a passion, and I think that we're all in this together. And one quote that I recently read that answers this question, I actually came upon this quote on LinkedIn. It said, if you're lucky enough to do well, it's your responsibility to send the elevator back down. And I really think that it's a social responsibility to be able to reach out and help someone, especially if you have the skills and the resources to do so. So that's what motivates me to help people find jobs and help people in general. Okay, interviewing. This is actually going to touch on 3 questions that were asked on that first slide. It's going to answer, what can I do to increase my chances of being called back after an interview? What questions should I ask during an interview? And how do I get interviews when I just moved or relocated to an area? Okay, let's first look at interviewing. When you're interviewing or if someone calls you back for an interview, they like what they saw. So evidently they picked up the phone because they either liked your resume, something about your skill set matched what they were looking for, something intrigued them to set up an interview. So when you have that opportunity, this is the opportunity to sell a solution. This is the opportunity to show how you're going to bring value to that organization. So this is the time when you're going to sit down, not only comb through your resume, but also show what value you've brought to previous employers as well as your current employer if you're currently employed. So this is your time not to just sell yourself, because at the end of the day, the company is in business not to give you a job, but to actually meet a need that they have. And they want to figure out, by hiring you, how are you going to meet this need? So you're going to have to be able to sell a solution in that interview. The next thing the interviewer looks at is the questions that are asked. And on the next slide, we're going to go through some questions that are asked. So when you're in an interview, you want to make sure that you're asking intriguing questions that put yourself in that employer's establishment. Not so much of how much is the salary or, things of that nature. You want to actually ask questions that are going to get them to think. So this is something that's also going to intrigue the interviewer and is going to set you apart from everyone else that applies to that position. Of course, your body language plays a role. If you're nervous, if you come off kind of jittery, or even if you give incomplete answers, they can come off as either being dishonest or not being direct. So you want to make sure that your body language is very relaxed, and you can do this through practicing, having mock interviews. You want to make sure that that's something that you can do. Also, even when you're doing a phone interview, many employers are looking to do Google Hangouts or do Skype, so they actually still want a visible image of you, but sometimes they may actually speak to you on the phone. In your tone of voice and the way you relay your answers also gives them indication on whether or not you're confident in what you're telling them. And this is something that can be detected through the tone of your voice. So if they see you're hesitating about a particular topic or you're not very knowledgeable on something, that's going to actually be revealed through the tone that you use and through how you carry yourself when that question is asked. You also want to be up to date on current events. And I can't stress this enough. It's more than going to the About Us page of an employer's website, which many people do. And I'm not saying that's not a good idea. Definitely check out the About Us page. See what the company's about. But really, what is really going to impress that employer is for you to talk about something that they're doing now. What is some current things that they're implementing now? What did they launch? What did their competitors launch? What are they in the process of rolling out? So you want to have current information that you can actually talk about in that interview that's going to actually spark up, this person knows more than just when we were built or when we were launched. This person can actually give us some current information on where our company is today. So you definitely want to have some type of current events in there. And again, that's going to set you apart from everyone else because you're going to bring some things in there that you probably and more likely can be able to link to the solution that you're trying to sell. If they're launching something that's similar to a competitor, or if they're rolling out something that's similar to a competitor, how will your solution actually help cultivate their growth? So you want to definitely see how you can relate to the current events that are going on. How can you relate that to the solution that you're selling? Regardless of the role. You don't even have to be in a sales role to do this. You can be an administrative assistant. How can you save this employer time? You may be responsible booking their appointments. Something as general as that can still show progress and still help an employer out. And I tell this in many of my workshops, companies are in business either to save money or make money, and they're looking for someone that can help them do that. So what is your solution? The next thing they're going to talk about is the interview questions. And I tell people it's not the answers, but the questions that bring insight. You know, many times employers aren't looking for you to answer every question to the T. Sometimes they're looking to see, is this person fluent enough to ask me a question that's going to enlighten me? So when you actually have interviews, instead of bringing your same cliche questions, you may want to start with questions about, you know, what are the organization's strengths and weaknesses compared to its competitor? What are the advantages? Where has this role left previous employees? So you want to know, you know, whoever was in this role that I'm applying for, where are they at now? You know, was there an internal promotion? You know, so you want to also know, you know, if I took this position, would this potentially be a career path for growth? That shows that you're thinking long term. You also want to ask about the organizational structure. How do they communicate within the organization? That would give you a insight on the company's culture. You also want to know, if you can think ahead, you know, what is the organization's plan for the next 5 years? How does this department or how does this role fit into that? Again, that takes you outside of just, you know, I'm looking for a position today, to I'm looking to be with this organization down the road. And that's what employers want. They want to make sure they're going to be making a long-term investment. And that's one thing that you want to take a look at. You know, and when you want to ask questions that's going to initiate a long-term growth with the organization. You know, what work can I expect to be doing the first year? What are the expectations? You know, that's not only getting insight that you're readily available, that also gives you insight of what's expected of you. How can I get my resources and my actual expertise to grow with this organization? So this is some of the questions that you should ask that's going to pretty much differentiate you from anyone else that's interviewing. I can guarantee you these questions are being asked, and I've interviewed a lot of candidates and none of these questions has ever come up. So if you did ask any questions or any questions similar to that, you definitely would be setting yourself apart from everyone else. The next question was that was asked is how to get interviews when you moved in, where are the job fairs? I'm new to the area and I'm from Pennsylvania. The one is job fairs and networking. The first thing you need to do is you can actually look this up, and these are actual URLs just without the .coms. Nationalcareerfairs.com is one. CarouselExpo.com is another one, and JobExpo.com is also another one. There are a lot out there. Those are the three primary job fairs that you can actually look at, career fairs, and they actually have you, when you log in or when you actually go to the site, you can filter the job fairs by demographics. So for the person that asked me, they're in Pennsylvania, I went to each one of these sites and they listed job fairs strictly for Pennsylvania when I clicked on the state of Pennsylvania, and you can actually narrow it down to city. So if you're in Philadelphia or you're in Pittsburgh, you know, wherever you are, you can actually filter it down to the city, and it brings a whole list of upcoming job fairs, and they have them listed all the way out to 2015. So there are plenty of job fairs out there locally that are running up until now, up until the end of this year. The next thing you want to do in networking outside of job fairs, and this goes to anyone that's new to the area, look for organizations and associations that are niche to your industry. You know, there's no reason why you can't step in on an association or organizational meeting that's created just for your niche. If you're in sales, you should be in the National Sales Network. If you're in marketing, you should be in the American Marketing Association. You know, and they have chapters for pretty much every city and state out there. There's no reason why you shouldn't be networking with people in your industry and actually have a laser focus on who you network, because there's organizations out there that are niched out to your field. You know, you just have to find them. Next is college and universities. They always have job fairs and career fairs, and they also have insights on employers that are hiring. You know, it doesn't hurt to go to some of your local alumni's page and look at their career page or their career portals and take a look at the companies that are hiring. You know, many of them are giving job fairs in the local area. Next one is meetups and classes. You know, you can go to meetup.com. They have great resources that you can network with like-minded people. Again, classes is nothing wrong with sharpening your axe. If you're out there now and you're looking for a job and you feel that your education or your experience may be, may be short or may not be as competitive, why not take a class? Why not go out there and sharpen your axe? So this is another way that you can network, and this is another way that you can connect with decision makers as well. Next question is, I'm trying to transition from nonprofit to corporate. What advice do you offer? Are there any different approaches for job seekers depending on the target, if you're trying to target corporate or you're trying to target nonprofit? And the simple answer is no. The rules stay the same far as networking and building a connection. That doesn't change regardless if you're trying to apply for a corporation or a for-profit, or if you're trying to apply for a nonprofit. The relationships, the networking, all that stays the same. I can tell you some differences between nonprofits and for-profits and what they look for when they hire candidates. That's going to be where your difference is. Nonprofits in general are driven by a purpose, and that's also reflected in their funding. Most nonprofits, they have event planners and fundraisers, and they try to build that connection with the community depending on their cause or their mission, and they're looking for someone that can share that vision or mission. So that's something that they're looking at. They're passion driven, versus a profit or a for-profit company. They're revenue driven, not to say they don't have a mission or purpose, but they also want to make sure the person they're bringing in is going to be an asset to the organization. They're heavily dependent on quantitative data. When you have a resume, again, this goes for anyone. They want to know how you increase something, how you improve something. It doesn't always have to be money. You can improve a process that saves the company time. You can streamline something. You can save time. So it doesn't always have to be money, but they are looking for quantitative data. Nonprofits more are looking for impact or purpose. How did what you do impact the organization? How did what you do impact the community? What was the purpose of doing this? So they also are looking for not so much quantitative data, because they operate differently. Nonprofits are not in the business to have a surplus at the end of the year. They're not trying to have they made a XYZ revenue. Most of them aren't. I'm not an accountant. There's probably some out there that, in general, that may have a portion of the business that does have revenue, but in general, most nonprofits aren't looking to make a profit at the end of the year. The resources are going to be different for profit versus a nonprofit. Most profit companies have the money to give you the resources and the latest and greatest this, that, and the other. Nonprofits don't. Most of their funding either is through donations. Some may be state or federal funded. So they're limited resources on what they can spend on. Their budgets are constricted on what they can spend on. So the resources may be different. You may have your own iPad, iPhone, laptop when you work for a for-profit company, that company given to you. When you go to a nonprofit, you may not have those perks. So that's something you want to take in mind. Compensation, of course, is different. For-profits are going to give a much more competitive compensation versus nonprofits that have a little bit of a lower compensation. Again, this is not across the board. I do know some nonprofits that pay just as competitive as for-profits, but in generally speaking, most nonprofits do not offer as a competitive salary as if you were a for-profit organization. So that's something that you want to take into account. As far as drafting your resume, again, Nonprofits, since most people aren't being paid as much as for-profits, they want to make sure you have some type of passion, you're driven for their purpose, and at the end of the day, why do you want to work for a nonprofit? That's what they really want you to answer. If you can get the same job making 20, 30,000 more in the profit sector, why do you want to work for a nonprofit? And that's the answer that you're going to have to reflect through your resume. So that's something that they're going to be looking at as well. Those will be the major differences. Again, nonprofits are pretty much more purpose-driven versus a for-profit that's more revenue-driven. Out of work, this individual that asked about out of work, how to get in touch with recruiters and successfully job applying skills, how to jumpstart a search after 5 years of not working. And another question was any tips for job seekers that have been out of work for an extended period of time. So pretty much the same questions. If you've been out of work for a very, very long time, and I have someone that put in parentheses pretty much years or 5 years of not working, you want to be as transparent as possible. This is not the time to try to shy away from any questions that they may ask. They are going to ask for an explanation. It is going to be direct because, I even do it when I interview employee or candidates that may have been out of work. I ask, hey, what were you doing? Not to get a direct answer for some things may be personal. I understand. You may have had an ill parent that you had to take care of. You may have relocated. Some people that had, started a family, had a baby, they recovered from an illness. So I understand there's different reasons out there, and you don't have to get very, very personal with that, and employers understand that you don't want to have to get very, very personal, but they do want some type of statement on, why you weren't working. They don't have to know the diagnosis. If maybe you were helping an ill parent, they don't have to know what your ill parent was diagnosed with. Just something general to let them know, hey, why weren't you working? And you also want to have some type of explanation. Okay, if you weren't working, what were you doing? This also kicks back to transparency. Did you freelance? Were you volunteering? Did you consult? They want to know, what were you doing to keep your skills sharp? That's what the question's purpose is. They want to know how, if I bring you in here and you haven't seen this type of work in over 5 years, how do I know I don't have to just retrain you and everything? So they want to know that you've still been exposed to the type of work, and if you can still bring value to the organization, though you've been out of work for that long. And that can be answered through answering that question. Whether you did some volunteer work, whether you did something to keep your skills up to date. And that goes to sharpening your axe. Did you go back to school? I know I've actually worked with candidates that they took off 2 or 3 years to go back to get their master's or to get their doctorates. So, hey, they could account for, hey, I wasn't working because I was a full-time student. So you want to make sure that, or they were taking classes or courses where you're sharpening your axe. So being out of work is not always a bad thing. You also want to consider an entry level. If you're sitting here and you're saying, Bridget, everything that you're saying does not apply to me. I was out of work. I didn't freelance. I didn't consult. I didn't do any volunteer work. The reason why I was out of work consumed 100% of my time. So my answer to that is no, I didn't do any of that stuff. That's when that last bullet point has to come into play. You might have to consider taking an entry-level position. If you left out as a manager or director, it may be very, very hard for you to jump back in as a manager or a director if you hadn't been in a managerial role for 5 years or 6 years. That's just the realistic answer I can give you, compared to someone that's, that's currently in that role. They're going to hire that person versus someone that's been out of work for 5 years. I know it's not the answer you want to hear, but that's how it plays out. So you may have to consider taking an entry-level position. So that's something that you want to look at when you are out there and applying to jobs. Are you applying to positions that require you to have a director or manager level, but you haven't been in that capacity since 2010, and we're now in 2014? So that's something that you want to consider when you're out there applying for positions. Next one is a confidential search. He says, I'm a pretty private person. How do I guard my ID while conducting a successful search? First, when you're conducting a confidential search, you want to make sure that you have the proper settings. And this not only goes for social media, this also goes for if you're using job boards, if you're posting your resume online, they give you the option to hide it from employers, so that way it doesn't come up in a search when they're looking through resumes, because as employers, they have a resume database, and if you have your resume visible, employers can see that you're actively looking for a job. You can still upload your resumes to those portals, but you can hide it, and the only way that employer can see your resume is if you apply directly to that employer's position. That's the only way that your resume will be revealed. So that way, your resume is only getting into the hands of someone that's making the hiring decision versus being posted online, available for anyone to view. That goes for LinkedIn. If you're updating your profile, and I have no problem with you updating your profile, because you want to make sure you're as competitive as possible. Make sure your settings, which you can actually go through security and settings, and make sure you're unclicking that box that sends updates each time you change your LinkedIn profile. So there's actually a setting in LinkedIn, if you go to privacy and settings, and you actually can go under profile, and under there you can uncheck that box, so any changes that you make to your profile will not blast to your entire connections. And I've actually had someone that was applying to things and updating their LinkedIn profile, and on my news feed it was nothing but updated working experience, updated volunteer skills. It was just nothing in my news feed but them making updates. So you want to be very mindful that you can change those settings, so when you're making updates to your LinkedIn profile, nobody knows you're making them. If not, it's going to send out an alert to everyone that you're connected to that you're making updates on your profile. You want to make sure that you're having meeting of the minds with the people that you're communicating with. That includes employers, that includes recruiters, even the people that you network with. You want to make sure they have a clear understanding that you're doing a confidential search, which means that you don't want everyone to know. And I've actually worked with candidates that say, hey, I'm working, I looked at their resume, and I've been here 4 or 5 years, I'm looking to make a move, my employer doesn't know, and they let me know up front, basically this is a confidential search. You want to make sure your recruiters are acknowledging that you're working on confidentially, and you want them to be as discreet as possible. So that's why I say you need to have a meeting of the minds with everyone that's part of your job search. Next one, you want to send out your resumes consciously, which means that you want to blast it out there. You don't want to send it to everyone that asks for it. If someone asks for your resume, make sure they have an employer or a position in mind before you send it. And I've had people ask me this, when I ask for the resume, that, hey, if you're not trying to fill something, take a look at my profile, they weren't going to send me their resume. And I understand that, so you want to be very discreet, and you want to be able to send your resume only on an as-need basis, so if you need it, send it. Other than that, you don't want it just sitting in someone's database. And again, network discreetly. This goes when you start joining these organizations and start networking with these like I said, you start joining these industry niche organizations. Be very discreet about your intent as far as making a career move if you're trying to keep it confidential. You may not want to disclose it to everyone that's a part of that organization, because nowadays you don't know who knows who. The internet has made the world so much smaller. So that's one thing that you want to do. And also, when I say network discreetly, you also want to network with people that you can trust. So if you know a person that, if you say that you're looking for a job, and, next thing you know, it's on the announcement board at work, you kind of can gauge who to disclose that information to. Next one was communication skills. How to improve my English communication skills fast. And this actually was coming from a person, I guess, that was finding it difficult to communicate in interviews. And this can be anyone that may have an accent. This may be anyone where English is not their native language. You know, you want to be able to communicate, and I can understand how, you know, not being able to communicate what you can do and not be able to communicate it effectively, you know, can hold you back from a career opportunity. I thought of some things as far as joining the Toastmasters. Toastmasters pretty much are organizations that help, you know, public speakers, and not only people that make speeches or public speakers. I don't, you know, even though that's what the organization is for, it helps people be more relaxed and more familiar with actually speaking in groups, and gets you more relaxed about doing that, so, and more comfortable doing that. So that's what Toastmasters actually does. So it's not much about a person that, you know, a person that gives speeches. It gives you that level of comfort to be able to articulate what you have to say and be very comfortable doing it. Another place I saw online was Pronunciation Doctor on YouTube, all one word, Pronunciation Doctor. Put it on YouTube. I mean, this lady is fantastic. The reason why I actually know about her, because from North Carolina and I went to school in Alabama, I have an accent, and I can't get rid of it. And people notice it when I speak, and I slur my words sometimes. I'm pretty sure in this presentation you probably caught on that as well. You know, I try to speak very clearly, you know, but sometimes my accent does kick in and my vowels get, you know, prolonged, you know, and I don't pronounce things correctly, and that happens to me as well, you know. And as I start speaking and giving workshops, you know, I've been working on that, so I understand the struggles, and I've actually been pointed out on that as well, you know. So I understand how communication definitely can be a barrier. Next thing you want to do once you work on your pronunciation is to start doing mock interviews. You want to do a mock interview. If time permits, you can go to the website, click on schedule a schedule a phone interview, or schedule a phone time with me, and we can do a mock interview, you know, as long as the calendar is clear. And that's why I have people do it, because it brings up my actual calendar and you can actually see the days I'm available, and you can put in there, I don't mind doing mock interviews. And I can tell you up front, after we do a mock interview, I can tell you, you know, what did I gather, what things you pronounced wrong, what things were not clearly, you know, what things that were not emphasized clearly, and I can give you that feedback if you want to do that. You can also do mock interviews with friends or family members. You know, I really recommend that you do mock interviews with a professional, or someone that's actually in a position that they interview, and they can actually call you out on some of your mistakes. Sometimes friends and family members can be way too lenient, and they can say, oh yeah, that sounds fine, and you know, oh yeah, you know. So you want to make sure that you're actually doing a mock interview with someone that can give you constructive criticism, because that defeats the purpose if you do it with someone that's just going to tell you, hey, everything you said was perfect, you know. So you want to get feedback too. When you're going to these interviews, when you have the real thing, the real interview, make sure you're getting feedback. Even if they don't go through with you as a candidate, when they tell you no, figure out why. If it was the interview, that way you can start to tighten up on that and start to work on that. You know, it sounds to me you've already uncovered, you know, what may be holding you back, and it may be the language barrier. So now, since you know that, you definitely want to work on that to make that something as an asset when you move forward. And also, you know, if English isn't your native language, if you have another language that definitely is something that's seeked out in the U.S., make sure you are highlighting that in your resume if you're fluent in another language. I know of many companies that love bilingual employees, so make sure that you know, even though you may not be a native English speaker, you're also make sure that you're highlighting your native tongue as well, because you know, employers definitely see that as an asset. So I hope I was able to touch on your questions. We have about 50 minutes left. And I want to make sure I put in this one more tip before we actually close it, and then I'm going to open the line up for a Q&A for any questions that were not submitted prior. One question was how to get in touch with recruiters and successful successfully apply for jobs, this is my one more tip. If you want to get to the recruiters, you want to go to the source. So this is why I say getting to the source, and I put this data here because right now in 2014, this is prime time. LinkedIn continues to dominate the social recruiting at 93%. Let me repeat that, 93% in 2012. It's higher, and I think it's up to 98% for 2014. So I think only 2% of employers aren't using LinkedIn. So these are where these employers and these recruiters are. Same thing with Facebook, same thing with Twitter. Facebook went up, I think it's 66% in 2012. I think it's in the 70s now. So people are reaching out online. People are building relationships online. And you also want to make sure that you're using and implementing social media in your in your job seeking efforts. So this is something that I definitely want to put out there. That's one tip I definitely want to make sure that you implement, is to use social media in your process. And one challenge I usually want the people to take away is, out of everything you learned today, and out of all the questions that I asked, whether you asked the question or not, or you were just here to listen to some of the questions I reviewed, I want you to walk away with this implementing one thing, whether it's getting up to speed with LinkedIn, whether it's, hey, you know what, I'm going to go out there and actually join an association and start networking with people in my industry. I want you to implement at least one thing today, not everything, but one. And I can guarantee you how your results will change. So I challenge you to unplug, not to say don't apply online, but just unplug for a day or two. Get out there and network and start putting faces with a name, and I can guarantee you how your entire search will turn around. And this is my contact information. Again, visit the website if you want to set up an appointment. Again, I'm open for mock interviews, direct number extension, preferably book an appointment beforehand, because I'm normally not just sitting at the desk. Upcoming workshops that we're going to be putting in effect soon. We're going to actually be creating a market a market portal that's going to help out job seekers like yourself connect with employers directly. So I definitely keep everybody up to date with that. And I'm going to go ahead and open up the line, and if you have a question, you can definitely answer it above. So let me see if I have anyone asking a question today. Have someone that asks, I've been out of the job market for an extended period. I know this can be a red flag to hiring managers or recruiters. Any advice as to how to overcome this hurdle? Again, and I think I spoke about this. If you are out of work for an extended period of time, again, you want to be very transparent. You want to be able to explain yourself. You want to explain the job gap or the career gap, unemployment gap, and you also want to see if you can, if it's possible, see if you can, supplement that with something that you were doing in the meantime, where I wasn't working but I was volunteering, or I was freelancing, I was consulting. And then again, it goes back, if you weren't doing those things, you may have to consider taking an entry-level position, which means that you may have to take a position that requires 0 to 1 year experience just to get yourself back out there in the working field. Or you may have to volunteer for a little while just to get that work. And volunteering is a great way to connect, and I've seen people volunteering it and end up working for the place they volunteered with. So you also want to be able to do something that's going to open up doors. So that's why I say challenge yourself on, applying to entry-level positions, networking, volunteering, getting yourself out there, letting people know that even though I was out, I still am an asset, and be able to show that, so that's something that you want to do as well. It says, how can you deliver your elevator speech at a career fair when most of the times recruiters rush you to their website or handouts for more information? The thing about and I did a workshop on a career fair, about career fair 101. The beauty about career fairs, you want to have your plan together. And most of the time when you're at a career fair or you're booking a career fair, I don't know how many of them are set up now, but most of them now you can actually book time um, with the employer. What my plan was or would be if I was going to a career fair, you definitely want to make sure that you're prioritizing the companies that you want to see. And people don't do this. You have to have a game plan. You know, I don't know if anyone's a shopper out there. I surely am, but you know, I know if I'm going to a mall or something like that, I already know the stores in my head that I'm going to hit up. I know, you know, I have my coupons in hand, you know, and that's kind of how you want to do when you're at a career search or a career fair. When you've signed up for that career fair, they've already let you know the employers they're going to be there. You know, so you have a list of the employers that are going to actually have a booth. You should be mapping out, you know, depending on what actual companies that you want to go to. And this is the catch. You want to make sure that you prioritize in reverse. And I know it sounds funny. You want to put your least company your least favorite first and have it go down to the most important company. So your least favorite to most favorite, or you know, pretty much like least favorite. And then you're probably asking, why do you want to do that? Why? Because by the time you get to your last company, you'll have your elevator speech down pat. Because why? You probably said it 7 times or 10 times. You know, so of course you should practice before you go, but you'll face your stumbles and your and your I forgot what to say. You do that with your least favorite companies first. By the time you get down to the most important companies, you'll have that elevator speech down pat. And the way you can get their time is start booking time in advance. If you know the companies that are going to be there, there's no reason why you shouldn't be out there on LinkedIn, on any search engine, getting the contact information of the recruiters in that area who are going to be facilitating the actual job fair, and seeing if you can give them a notice that, hey, you know, I'm going to that job fair. That's a great way to break the ice, and see if you can set up, you know, can I get 10-15 minutes of your time when I get there? Try to set up appointments beforehand. And there's no way without, you know, with the technology that's out there that you're not able to locate the person that's going to be at that job fair. Next question is, in the summary part of the resume, when stressing your accomplishments, do you have to be job-related accomplishments, or can you mention some accomplishments through campus club, community service as well? And again, if you're someone that's entry level, or you're someone that just graduated college, you know, that would be very appropriate to do that, because what else could you list? You know, if you're, you know, fresh out of college, you don't have 10, 20 years of experience to put on your resume, so you're going to have to stress, you know, those community activities, those things that you've done in school to show that you were a leader while you were in school. Also, make sure you're stressing internships if you had internships. So yes, it's definitely appropriate to mention those accomplishments if you are a recent grad, you know, because you don't have the track record to list anything else. You know, that would be your foundation. So yes, I think that would be appropriate. How affected are job search websites like CareerBuilder, Monster, or Dice? They're effective. You know, as we see that, we see people actually get jobs from them, you know. And keep in mind, employers have to pay for those postings, you know, so these aren't free. You know, companies, you know, aren't just putting out $500-600 a post just to put a post in there. So companies are hiring through these sites. The catch is the volume. That's the catch-22. You know, through these sites, CareerBuilder, Dice, Monster, they may get anywhere from 200, 300, 400 applicants per job posting. You know, so it's the quantity that boggles that post down, and that many times I've actually heard that candidates don't even hear anything back, or they get a very, you know, cookie cutter email saying thank you for apply, we'll reach out to you if we want to move forward. You know, so not to say they're not effective, you know, companies do use them, and they do use them to find candidates, you know, but you're also, you're also between a rock and a hard place because the competition is so high. You could be one of 300 applicants, or you could be one of 400 people that applied to that job. So the chances, drastically decreases if you're applying for a very if you're applying for a very popular job per se. If it's a very popular job, especially, well, I wouldn't say DICE, because DICE is real niched out. It's, IT, a person have, and again, we have a shortage of different type of IT people, so the competition may not be as heavy. But if you're in a role that's very popular, you're going to have competition applying through those job portals. But not to say they're not effective. They're effective, but like I said, it's also good to find out who the decision maker is in the actual company. Reach out to them directly. You could even give them a heads up that you already applied online. You never know. They may go directly to that portal and pull your resume or pull your application. But you definitely want to give them a heads up that, hey, I'm in that, Power 400, and they may take a look at that. I had one is, I freelance and work jobs that have nothing really to do with what I want to do. I don't list much of it on my resume. Should I list some of it anyway just to fill in an employment gap? I would ask you, is anything that you freelance or any of the work that you've done, is any of that have any transferable skills to what you want to do? And what I mean by that is, even though it's not really what you want to do, can you still relate it to what you want to do? So even though it may be a totally 180, it's something in that particular freelance job. Just being a freelancer in general shows that you have the tenacity to go out there and sell, and you have the tenacity to go out there and be an independent contractor. That relates to many positions. So you definitely want to still highlight these jobs, even though it may not be what you want to do, but it does show a skill set that's not found in many other jobs. So I still will highlight that, and I would try to make those freelance jobs transferable to what you're trying to actually do and make it somewhat relate, if that makes sense. And yes, that will fill that employment gap. When will this webinar be accessible online? I actually would try to upload it tonight or tomorrow, along with I have about 2 or 3 other workshops I'm going to send up there. So when you go online to YouTube, Career Innovations, all one word, you'll see a previous uploads as well. But you'll be able to pick it out by the picture I'm going to post, because you'll know what the picture is, the journey, the road, so you'll be able to identify it. So I'm going to actually try to put that up tonight, no later than tomorrow. I have someone that says, I'm a recent college dropout with little work experience. I get very embarrassed in interviews and feel like this is a huge negative to any interviewer, even for an entry-level position that doesn't require a degree. Will everything be okay? Yeah. Now, I know people that didn't even go to college, regardless, dropping out of it. I know people that are successful that didn't even apply. So will everything be okay? Yes. But everything's going to be okay once you think everything's going to be okay. I know how cliche that may sound, but if you feel defeated and you feel that you're worthless and you feel that you're not going to get a job, that's what's going to rear its head. So you have to have a positive way of thinking. Will everything be okay? Do you think everything will be okay? I do. So you have to have that attitude, regardless if you have a degree or not, that everything's going to be okay. And the reason is, when you go into those interviews and you feel embarrassed, you feel ashamed, interviewers catch a hold of that. It goes through, we just talked about that, body language. Interviewers pick up on that. They feel if you feel depressed or you feel down, or if you don't even feel confident in your abilities, interviewers pick up on that. So if you're going to these interviews kicking yourself in the butt because you dropped out of college, the employers are going to see that through the way you answer questions and the way that you present yourself. So you have to definitely pick it up. So what that you didn't finish school? Make a plan to go back if you want to. or make a plan to do something else, but until then, don't keep beating yourself up about that unless you're going to fix it. If you don't have any plans to go back to college, that's fine. No one says you have to go back, but what you're going to have to do is find another solution that you can implement, whether it's full-time work that's going to be able to solve this so you won't feel this way, because what's going to happen is employers are going to catch on to that, and they're going to say, well, would have hired the guy, or he fit, he's able to do the work, but doesn't even seem confident. Who knows if he'll even show up if we do hire him? He's coming up. We don't want this person coming in becoming a cancer in our corporate culture, if he's coming in already depressed. So you want to make sure that you have a positive attitude. And I've seen people with no degree get jobs that require a degree, and I've been doing this for a while. I've seen people, because they carry themselves and they have the gift of gab, talk themselves right into a position that requires a degree. I've seen it, so degree shouldn't hold you back. So it's that confidence, it's that being able to walk in there and know that you got that job without a degree, even if it requires it or not. I'm going to say, make sure I answered everyone's questions tonight. I think I did. We're at 8:03. Thank you, everyone, for your time. After this workshop, there's a Q&A. There is not a Q&A, there is a survey. Please take the surveys, multiple choices, only 10 questions. It lets me know how to better my best. It gives me topics to speak about the next Monday. We do this every single Monday from 7 to 8 Eastern Standard Time. So just let me know how we did. Let me know what I should change, what I should implement. Come with your questions next week. Love to work with you. Book an appointment. Would love to have a one-on-one. Thank you for your time and have a great night, everyone. Bye-bye.